Chapter 40. When Stanley found the onions the night before, he didn't question how it came to be there. He ate it gratefully, but now as he sat gazing Big Thumb and the meadow full of flowers, he couldn't help but wonder about it. If there was one wild onion, there could be more. He intertwined his fingers and tried to rub out the paint. Then he bent down and dug up another flower, this time pulling up the entire plant, including the root. "Onions, fresh, hot, sweet onions," Sam called as Mary Lou pulled the cart down the main street. 8 cents a dozen. It was a beautiful spring morning. The sky was pale blue and pink, the same color as the lake and the peach trees along its shore. Miss Glaze Tyson was wearing just her nightgown and a robe as she came running down the streets after Sam. Miss Tyson was normally a very proper woman who never went out in public without dressing up in fine clothes and a hat. So it was quite surprising to the people of Green Lake to see her running past them. "Sam!" she shouted. "Whoa, Mary Lou," said Sam, stopping his mule and cart. "Good morning, Miss Tyson," he said. "How's little Becca doing?" Gladys Tyson was all smile. "I think she's going to be all right. The fever broke about an hour ago, thanks to you. I'm sure the good Lord and Dr. Harthrone deserves most of the credit." "The good Lord, yes," said Miss Tyson, "but not Dr. Harthrone. The quack wanted to put leeches on her stomach. Leeches, my word! He said they would suck out the bad blood. Now you tell me, how would a leech know good blood from bad blood?" "I wouldn't know," said Sam. "It was your onion toxic," said Miss Tyson. "That's what saved her." Other town people made their way to the cart. "Good morning, Gladys," said Haiti Parker. "Don't you look lovely this morning?" Several people snickered. "Good morning, Haiti," Miss Tyson replied. "Does your husband know you're parading about in your bedclothes?" Haiti asked. There was more snicker. "My husband knows exactly where I am and how I am dressed, thank you," said Miss Tyson. "We've both been up all night and half morning with Rebecca. She almost died from stomach sickness. It seems she ate some bad meat." Haiti's face flushed. Her husband, Jim Parker, was a butcher. "It made my husband and me sick as well," said Miss Tyson, "but it nearly killed Becca. With what her being so young, Sam saved her life." "It wasn't me," said Sam. "It was the onions." "I'm glad Becca's all right," Haiti said contritively. "I keep telling Jim he needs to wash his knife," said Mr. Pike, who owned the general store. Haiti Parker excused herself. Then she turned and quickly walked away. "Tell Becca that when she feels up to it, to come by the store for a piece of candy," said Mr. Pike. "Thank you, I'll do that." Before returning home, Miss Tyson brought a dozen onions from Sam. She gave him a dime and told him to keep the change. "I don't take charity," Sam told her, "but if you want to buy a few extra onions for Mary Lou, I'm sure she'll appreciate it." "All right then," said Miss Tyson. "Give me my change in onions." Sam gave Miss Tyson an additional 3 onions, and she fed them, one at a time, to Mary Lou. She laughed as the old donkey ate them out of her hand. Stanley and Zero slept off and on for the next 2 days, ate onions all they wanted, and splashed dirty water in their mouth. In the late afternoon, Big Thumb gave them shade. Stanley tried to make the hole deeper, but he really needed the shovel. His effort just seemed to stir up the mud and make the water dirtier. Zero was sleeping. He was still very sick and weak, but the sleep and the onions seemed to be doing him some good. Stanley was no longer afraid that he would die soon. Still, he didn't want to go for the shovel while Zero was asleep. He didn't want him to wake up, think he'd been deserted. He waited for Zero to open his eyes. "I think I'll go look for the shovel," Stanley said. "I'll wait here," Zero said feebly, as if he had any other choice. Stanley headed down the mountain. The sleep and the onions had done him a lot of good as well. He felt stronger. It was fairly easy to follow the trail he made 2 days earlier. There were a few places where he wasn't sure he was going to right away, but it just took a little bit of searching before he found the trail again. He went quite a way down the mountain, but still didn't find the shovel. He looked back up towards the top of the mountain. He must have walked right past it, he thought. There was no way he could have carried Zero all the way up from here. Still, he headed downward just in case. He came to a bare spot between 2 large patches of weed and sat down to rest. Now he had definitely gone too far, he decided. He was tired from walking down the hill. It would have been impossible to carry Zero up the hill from here, especially after walking all day with no food or water. The shovel must be buried in some weeds. Before starting back up, he took one last look in all directions. He saw a large indentation in the weeds a little farther down the mountain. It didn't seem likely that the shovel could be there, but he had already come this far. There, lying in some tall weeds, he found the shovel and the sack of jars. He was amazed. He wondered if the shovel and sack might have rolled down the hill, but none of the jars were broken, except the one which had been broken earlier. And if they had rolled down the hill, it's doubtful that he would have found the sack and shovel side by side. On his way back up the mountain, Stanley had to sit down and rest several times. It was a long, hard climb.